Hi everyone. My name is Erin Ahart. I am joined by my colleague, Dr. Johnette Ruffner-Ceaser. We are both career counselors serving all graduate students in the Columbian College of Arts and Sciences. I'll start off today's session by sharing the context around why we're having this conversation and really the purpose of today's meeting. So Dr. Chow Wei shared that some of you have some questions about the current job market and specifically how this relates to you all as PhD economics students. And we are very aware that many of you have questions around the current job market and just the amount of competition that there is right now. And so today, we really just want to answer your questions, and this session is really for you all to use this time as it's helpful to you. This is a Q&A style session. And so before we get into the Q&A, we'll share just a little bit more about some of these concerns. We've also heard these concerns from students and faculty in other departments. Yes, specifically around the job market, but also as it relates to being in DC, because there is more competition due to the mass layoffs at the government level, which in turn impact the private sector, as we just have so many more people competing for the same jobs. And then tack on to that AI, specifically generative AI coming into the picture. And AI already impacts the job application process with ATS systems, but now even more factors are coming into play, which makes everything just a little bit more complicated. And so since we've heard these concerns, I also want to share that while we are having today's question and answer style session, Dr. Ruffner-Ceaser and I have also created more workshops as part of our Career Readiness Workshop series this semester to address these concerns around AI, the current job market, and really the future of work. And so some of these future workshops that we want everyone to be aware of are the future of work, thriving in an AI-driven world, the human advantage, what you bring to the table that AI never will. So that one is really talking about the skills that you bring that AI will never be able to replace and how to market yourself in an AI-driven job market. And then finally, beyond the job hunt, entrepreneurship as a path to career success. And so that was a brief overview of our session today and how we're addressing the current job market. And I will now turn it over to Dr. Ruffner-Ceaser to introduce herself, share how Career Services can support you throughout your job search, and then we'll get right into our Q&A.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So happy that so many of you all have joined the call. I want to just invite everyone, if you don't mind, if you feel comfortable turning your camera on. We don't care if you have bedhead or dressed in your pajamas or whatever, but if you're able, we would really love to see your face. Thank you, Pedro and Federico, to see your face. And the reason that's important is because Erin and I do this job because we really care. And we think caring starts with really personal connections, and having a conversation like this virtually helps us to see you and be even more connected to you as we provide support. So through Graduate Career Services, Erin and I provide one-to-one career advising sessions to help you to work on things like resume writing, cover letters, networking, LinkedIn optimization, managing job search anxiety, all of these lovely types of components to really help to prepare you. And our goal is to create interactions and workshops that really meet your needs and to as Erin mentioned, impact or to inform you about the job market. And so we do these one-to-one 45-minute sessions that are offered either virtually or in person. Just a heads up, I work virtually primarily on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Erin is our full-time person who can offer one-to-one advising virtually or in person. And so we encourage you all, if you have not met with us at least one time, please make sure that you do that. You can count this session as your one time visit, but we encourage you to do the one-to-one. And we encourage that because research has suggest that meeting with career services at least once increases your ability to find a job by 50%. So connect with us as often as you need and early. The other beautiful thing about CCAS Graduate Career Services is that we not only support you as a current student, but you as an alum as well. And so we like to say once a GW revolutionary, always a GW revolutionary. So just know that we are here to support you and you're able to meet with us as often as you need. So please keep that in mind as we move forward. And so with that foundation, we want to open the floor for Q&A. Now, Dr. Way has provided us with some questions already that we're prepared to answer. And we'll dig into those if you all don't have any immediate pressing questions, and you may come up with other questions as we have this conversation. So I'll just pause here and allow you all to start with posing your questions. Again, if we don't see any, then we will start to address the questions that we already have. Okay. Anyone can unmute and take the floor. While you're thinking about that, I'm sorry, I want to go back a little bit to share with you our background, Erin and I. I think that's a really important component to this. So I have a background in higher ed, 16 plus years in higher education administration. I have a doctorate in education policy and leadership from the University of Maryland, College Park. I have a diverse background. After obtaining my doctorate, I decided to pursue the land of entrepreneurship. And so now I own a professional services agency where I support mid to senior level career women specifically. Well, that's my target audience. As they desire to obtain or teach them how to obtain professional peace. Professional peace can consist of a promotion, going into a completely different career, starting a business, etc. And so Erin has a wonderful background as well, but we want you to understand our background so that you know how we can support you. And Erin, if you would introduce yourself, that would be great.
So again, my name is Erin. My background is also in higher education. I have a master's degree in higher education and student affairs. But before coming to GW, I worked with employers on the employer side. There's really two areas to career services in higher education. Now, Johnette and I both work with students in the career development capacity through career coaching. But before that, I worked with talent acquisition specialists. I planned all of the university's career fairs, and so really got to have a great idea of what employers are looking for when I worked on the employer side of career services, which is a different perspective. And now working with students, one of the areas that I'm most passionate about is helping young professionals make the transition from college to their careers. I love talking with students about professional etiquette and navigating how you can be truly yourself while also fitting into some of the professional etiquette and formalities of entering the workforce. And so outside of my work here at GW, I'm also a podcast host, and that podcast is specifically career advice for Gen Z professionals. And so that's a little bit about my background. But now that we've given you all some time to think of your questions, we'll open the floor back up. All right. Well, oh, sorry, Johnette, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, hearing none, if you want to alternate the questions, you starting with yours, and then I will go after and we'll tag team that way.
Sounds great. And You all, we know that you submitted these questions, so we're going to ask them and answer them. But if you have further clarification or want to just share more, ask a more in-depth question in your own words, that's really helpful because these are coming from you. So to start, one question that we received was how many how many applications do candidates usually submit, and how does one decide where to target? Um, so today I want to share that quality and quantity are equally as important. Before, the advice used to be the quality of the application was the most important thing, but because the job market is so competitive right now, it doesn't work anymore to submit one application per day. You need to do more than that. Now, for your roles, you are applying, many of you are likely applying for high level research roles at research institutions. Some of you may be pursuing academia, some think tanks, some consulting firms and consulting agencies. So we know that for these roles, it's important to take that time to be intentional. When you're at a high level in your career, that's even more important to demonstrate how there's fit and alignment with the jobs you're applying for, but quantity is still important. And so, keeping that in mind, it's really important to develop a system to be able to turn out high quality applications, but also submit as many as possible if your immediate goal is to get a job. That should be your priority because, again, in the current job market, the quantity is of the utmost importance. Something that some students have had a lot of success with, I've found, is having a spreadsheet and keeping track of all of the details of those positions. The second part of this question was how does someone decide which roles to target? In a competitive job market, I think trial and error is something to pay attention to. So if you're noticing that you're not hearing back from companies where you're applying to jobs with certain job titles, or you're not hearing back from those larger firms, but you are hearing back and getting interview responses from some of the smaller companies, that's something to pay attention to. Maybe target those smaller companies. Yeah, be keeping track of the LinkedIn job posting URL that you can go back to. Be keeping track of that Indeed job posting URL that you can refer to. Um, really be noticing which jobs you're hearing back from and which ones you're not. And that's how I would go about which jobs to target. If the person who asked this question was talking about what kinds of jobs should I apply to, what kinds of positions should I pursue, and that's related to your interests, then that's probably a deeper conversation with a coach. But Johnette, if you have anything to add, and then I'll turn it over to you for the next question.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I wouldn't add anything. Before I go to the next question, I just want to highlight that Erin and I are generalists. We always want to stress that, given that we can give you all general information about the job market, how you should approach it. But there may be some questions that you would or should speak to specialists, which in you all's case would be, or the closest to you would be your professors. And so I just wanted to establish that expectation as we move forward. So the next question is, how does one navigate the private sector recruiting timeline compared to the academic timeline? So recruiting for academic roles, this is not a hard, fast rule, occurs in the following timeline. So for job postings, you'll usually see postings advertised in late summer or early fall for positions starting the following academic year. Application deadlines are typically between October and December. An interview process could occur somewhere between January and March, and then offers go out in the spring. But again, it's important to note that different universities and individual departments may slightly differ in schedules. And non-tenured track positions, of course, like adjunct professor roles, postdoctoral positions may be advertised and filled on a more rolling basis throughout the year. So keep that in mind. If we're talking about recruitment for non-academic roles, recruitment varies by industry. So, it could be very different. And so the hiring season typically for non-academic positions picks up in January and February with the significant increase in job applications, of course, and interviews. And this period is driven by really the new year and the return to work after the summer and the holidays. And as you can guess, the hiring process can slow down in the summer months because people are taking vacations, and the office shifts a bit to a more relaxed schedule. And in the fall, you will also see a slowdown as employees return to work. And then we approach the winter months, which are November and December. So keep those in mind, and where you are right now in the process. So, beginning to look for those opportunities. Any questions or feedback about that? Okay.
Our next question is, should different versions of a CV or resume be prepared for non-academic roles? And I think related to that question is another one that was asked, how much tailoring is expected for each application? So to answer the first one, should different versions of a CV or resume be prepared for non-academic roles? So let's just talk about first, what is the difference between a CV and a resume? When I was first trained, someone told me a CV is everything you've ever done. And that's somewhat true. It's still a tailored document, but in academia, it's your work experience, yes, but it's also teaching experience, conferences, conference presentations, your thesis, your dissertation, any other working papers that you've written, a lot of the academic projects that you all are used to being involved in as PhD students. So there's no limit on the number of pages that your CV is. It can run from 2 pages, sometimes to 8 to 10 pages for extremely accomplished professionals. It's very long. Whereas for a resume, it's 1 to 2 pages. Now, I think sometimes people who have a lot of experience, if you have a lot of experience in academia with a lot of those papers, conferences, presentations that you still want to highlight, fitting all of that onto 1 page feels really daunting and overwhelming. But we can share that for professionals with 5+ years of experience, those 5 years were jam-packed, or 5 to 10 years of experience, you can have a 2-page resume. So not to worry there. We know a lot of students are overwhelmed about that. But a resume is really focused on that work experience and the skills that you've gained from your academic experience, instead of just highlighting the topic and subject matter of those papers, conference presentations, thesis, dissertation, et cetera, et cetera. Resume is focused on skills and work experience in those 2 pages. So when do you use one, right? When should you use a CV or a resume? So as you all know, a CV is absolutely used for academic positions. It's also used for non-academic research. However, the research that you're pursuing in the private sector, it really depends on whether you're going to submit a resume or a CV. So at organizations like the Pew Research Center, this is a research organization, that's going to be a CV. And most times they'll ask for that on the job application when you're hitting submit on the website. Now, for organizations like think tanks, consulting firms, and even research positions in the private in other areas of the private sector, that's going to be a resume. So you really just want to pay attention to what they're asking for. If they are requiring a CV, they will most likely tell you that. If they want a resume, sometimes you'll see attach resume/CV. In that case, either would work, but it probably means you should be submitting a resume if they're not clarifying. Does anyone have any questions about that before we talk about tailoring? All right, I'm not hearing any questions. Okay. So how much tailoring is expected for each job application? So when you're applying for positions in the private sector, I had mentioned that establishing fit is really important. Fit and alignment. And that's what your resume should do. It should be when you're reading your resume, you should be thinking about it as if you're an employer. They've never met you before and they're trying to make sense of you as an applicant. And a lot of times with more experienced professionals, we'll work on professional summaries because that gives the employer a lens and perspective through which to read the rest of this 2-page document. So you want to think about it like that. If someone has never read your resume before and they're trying to figure out who this person is, but also check off the boxes on the job application and also see if there's fit and alignment. You always want to be thinking about that as you're writing a resume. Now, we know that tailoring a resume to each job application is way too much when you need to be getting your applications out there, and we understand that. So, what I like to do and what I have told my students in the past is if you're applying to 3 different types of positions, you can tailor a resume to that job type and then use that tailored resume for that job type for all the jobs that have the same job title and have the same role descriptions. When you do that, you should be thinking about the order of your experiences. So you'll typically see reversed chronological, where it will be most recent to least recent. But you can switch around the order to order it from most relevant to least relevant. Because again, if an employer is making decisions really fast, they're looking through 100 different resumes, you want them to see the most relevant experience first. So I would also look at the job description. What keywords are they looking for? What experience are they asking for? And make sure the resume for that job type or job category lines up with the job description.
Okay, all done? All right.
No question, still no questions? Okay.
Okay. So the next question is, what should one do if no offers are received in the first year? What are good backup plans? So what I want to give you is what you should do before this year is up to hopefully prevent this from happening. So the first thing to do is start early, start early, start early. I cannot stress that enough. And what do I mean by starting early? I don't know where you all are in your PhD program, but I want to encourage you to start connecting with us, connect and networking with faculty ASAP. Um, it's extremely important. And you need enough time to be able to obtain the information that you need related to your resume, related to your mindset as you're approaching these roles. But also in the networking process, you need time to cultivate relationships. And so, one of the ways that you can begin to cultivate relationships is going to your advisor's office or a faculty member's office after during office hours. Not to say I'm looking for a job, but do some research on that person. Are they doing the work or similar work that you want to do? And start meeting with them about their research, about the work they're doing, to really just have organic conversations. And I want to stress networking as building relationships because people can tell when you're just there because you're trying to make a connection. This is networking is a long game, right? It is designed to carry you throughout your career because you never know who you'll need to call upon, want to connect with in order to help you to move to the next level in your professional journey. So start early. There's also a component that I want to introduce that I don't think is talked about enough, in the job search process, and that's introspection. Take some time to sit with yourself to figure out what you want and what you need. And this connects with what Erin was talking about in terms of fit and alignment. The only way to know if a role fits you or is aligned with you is for you to first take some time to be introspective, meaning asking yourself, what do I want? What don't I want? What am I good at? What am I passionate about? What aspects of a job are important to me, like growth, stability, learning and development? Do I want hybrid work, flexibility, benefits? All of those things matter and are extremely important. And also understanding in terms of introspection, what do you bring to the table, or what problems can you solve in relationship to the role that you are seeking or roles you are seeking? It requires introspection to be able to answer those questions effectively. Okay, so start early by connecting with career services, networking, and practice some introspection as you move forward. Next, set appropriate expectations. I like to say, and I hope this doesn't scare anyone, but please understand that degrees are tools. They are not guarantees to secure jobs, even if you obtain the degree from George Washington. Okay? They are tools. And I think so many folks place so much weight on the fact that they've earned a degree from a particular university. But degrees are only as good as one's ability to use those um, degrees as tools, right? So understanding what it's designed to do, understanding um, uh, how it can open pathways, understanding how what you learned in your degree connects with the types of roles that you want to pursue. So set appropriate expectations. And also in that vein, understand that finding a job takes time. That's why it's important to start early. It could take anywhere from 6 months to a year, depending on the industry, depending on geographic location, all sorts of factors, depending on the job market. So keep those things in mind. Next, the hiring market is complicated. The complication didn't just start, it actually started closer to the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. The world changed. We had remote work or people deciding, I want to start a completely different career. And so, with understanding that, it's critical to be creative and flexible in your job search. So maybe casting a wider net than you may have considered before. I know that most of you will probably, of course, or I shouldn't say of course, but probably looking for full-time work. If you find that you're not finding a role in a reasonable time, being flexible could look like working on a contract basis. So that's being more entrepreneurial in your pursuits than just being laser focused on finding a full-time opportunity. So this requires having an entrepreneurial mindset as you pursue traditional work. Next, join in online job communities like LinkedIn, alumni networks, or even recruiting firms could be an option for finding your opportunity. And then finally, if you find that after a year that you have not found the type of opportunity you are seeking, work to stay calm. The biggest thing I think that happens once folks, if they get to that point, is you become a desperate job seeker. And I think desperation ultimately prolongs the job search because you end up, instead of focusing on alignment and good fit, You end up doing what I call creating a kitchen sink resume, which means you dump everything in your resume thinking something has to catch or land. But what you end up doing is drawing opportunities that you don't necessarily want, and then ultimately not being happy in those opportunities. Now, I completely understand that if finances are a component, you may have to do what you need to do. I understand that and get that. But initially, the goal is to hold firm to what it is you want, stay laser focused. Career services can support with helping you to stay calm and coming up with different strategies and tactics for finding the opportunities that you desire. Any questions about or comments about all that I've shared? Okay. Would you all put in the chat for me, is what we're sharing helpful? Are we addressing your questions and concerns in an effective way? Okay, great. Are you learning? Great. Anything new? Okay, awesome. Thank you all for your feedback. Okay, Erin.
All right. So another question was, how should one present skills, and in parentheses, empirical methods, coding, and economic theory to employers outside of academia? So this goes back to the tailoring that we had just talked about, right? So you want to make sure that you're looking at the job descriptions to see when an employer looks at your resume, what are they looking for? What are those boxes that they're trying to check off? How are they looking for you to demonstrate fit? And the job description is a cheat sheet. This is a cheat sheet for you to look at when you're writing your resume to make sure that what you're submitting matches up for what they want. So if you have these skills and you're coming into the private sector with empirical methods, coding, and economic theory, you should be highlighting these skills in your resume bullet points, in your technical skills section, in your cover letter, and of course in the interview. But the way you present them should be in the way that you know the employer is going to care about them. So think about, how does economic theory apply to what they're looking for in the job description? How does it apply to what you would be doing day to day in that role? Um, Think about how you can make connections between the skills that you currently have and experience that you bring and what they're looking for. And so instead of just listing, I have all of these skills, I'm great because I have, XYZ, it's, I'm the best candidate because my skills help me to do XYZ tasks, projects that you're looking for the person in this role to complete. And so that's how you should present these skills, framing them in the way that the employer is going to care about them when you present them in your application materials and in the interview. And we can go on to our next question.
All right. How can one remain competitive on the market if reapplying in a subsequent year? So I have several ways to do that. The first is make sure determine if your resume needs to be updated. So ensure your resume is current with your latest skills and experiences that align with the opportunities you are seeking. Next, gain work experience. Look for, and I mentioned this before, possibly contract work. And although not ideal, look for volunteer opportunities to gain relevant experience. I think many people underestimate the power of volunteering. Um, and I like to stress that if you are going to volunteer, be strategic about it, meaning you're volunteering for the purpose of acquiring experience in an area where you may not have significant experience. And so don't allow not having a full-time job or a part-time job in that particular area to keep you from gaining experience, because you can get that through volunteering, and you can state that volunteer experience on your resume just like you would a full-time position. So volunteering is a very powerful way to gain experience. If needed, consider further education like a certification that relates to that particular job to enhance your qualifications and make you a more attractive candidate. Also, this kind of connects to the introspection component that I was talking about earlier, is understanding your professional brand. That means creating a strong brand by defining what makes you unique, and maintaining an engaging online presence. So this is really critical, and where you can adopt an entrepreneurial mindset in your job search. Understanding what you offer, and I call them professional themes. Taking a look at your resume and asking yourself, what are 3 things that I do? Like any product, when you purchase sneakers or barbecue sauce or a cleaning product, you know why you're buying that product. It's very clear. The makers of that product communicate to you what these things do. And so the same is true for you as a candidate for employment, to be able to communicate that on a consistent basis. You can do that in your resume. You should be able to do it in networking opportunities. So, for instance, if you're at a networking fair or even in the grocery store, I believe opportunities can be found anywhere. So, Pedro, tell us a little bit about yourself. You need to be ready to be able to communicate what you do. It's called your elevator pitch in about 30 seconds. And the question isn't, even in an interview, and I've actually heard this, talking about your family background, although that's great, but it's really, tell us a little bit about yourself in relationship to the opportunity or potential opportunity that is before you. And so begin to craft that, begin to practice that, so that you're not thrown off when you get that type of question or when you want to initiate a conversation. This is also effective when you're building out your LinkedIn profile. Please, this is another component. Make sure you have LinkedIn. It is critical, and use it. We actually have a presentation about how to build your profile and how to establish your professional brand on LinkedIn. This is extremely important, and determine how you want to use that platform. But the most attractive platforms are those who have mapped out and identified what they bring to the table. Next is network effectively. Attend professional events. Again, use online platforms. Connect with faculty, as we mentioned before. Erin already mentioned to tailor your resume for the roles. And again, I can't stress this enough, to stay flexible and open-minded, be adaptable and open to new opportunities. Given the job market is as it is, it's important to be open and creative and not be super rigid in pursuing the type of opportunity that you may have originally had in the forefront of your mind. Being creative and being flexible does not in any way, shape, or form mean that you're a failure, that it's not perfectly aligned. It doesn't mean that at all. It may take some adjustments to ultimately get to where it is you want to go. Okay. Any questions? I know that was a lot. Okay. Erin?
I think that was actually the last question that we had, unless you have one more.
No, that was it.
So those are all of the questions that we have that were asked. Oh, never mind. We have one in the chat. Um, will there still be opportunities for new graduates after March, or is it already too late? I didn't go in the department job market last year, but had to try applying for some positions between March and May. Didn't receive much positive feedback, got a few interviews. Um, so if you're wondering, will new opportunities pop up throughout the year after March? Yes, there are new opportunities and job postings that become available all year long. It ebbs and flows, but new jobs and opportunities posted all the time. I'm not sure if this question is related to the academic market or if this is related to the private sector. But if you find that you haven't been successful or haven't received much feedback from employers, but we're making it to the interview, I think this is a deeper conversation for a one-on-one appointment to see, what's going on, where could your application be improved. But it's always important to remember if you are getting interviews, that's a clue that your resume, your cover letter, your job applications are working for you because the job of the resume is to get an interview. The job of the interview is to get you the job. So that could be a clue too, but I would definitely recommend that you schedule a one-on-one appointment with us. I see another question. Any tips on the kinds of details that should be included in the cover letter? Any specific difference in academic versus think tank jobs? So we actually do have a workshop that is online on our YouTube channel. It is called A Cover Letter is Like a Love Letter. And that may sound like a silly title, but there's actually a love letter template that goes through all the sections of a cover letter. So it typically starts with you sharing why you're interested in that company, focusing on them, then going into why the company should be excited about you, what you have to offer that position, and then the third part of the cover letter is why you would work well together and really closing it out with a call to action, talking about an interview in the future. And then differences between academic versus think tank jobs. So again, this is going to be looking at the job description. What are they looking for? But also networking with people in both of those industries, because the way that professionals at think tanks versus professionals in academia look at job applications is going to be wildly different. Even things like tone, and just the way you communicate in your cover letter, people could be looking for different things. So I would definitely do some informational interviews and ask at least 1 to 2 professionals in each of those areas what they would look for. Right. Do we have any other questions? All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, but Jonna and I want to thank you for attending this session, and thank you for submitting all of these wonderful questions via the form that Dr. Way had sent out. We are here to support you. So if you have more questions that you want to talk to us about, if you need support as you navigate your job search, please schedule a one-on-one appointment with us. Please attend our career readiness workshops. And I already mentioned that we have some recordings on our YouTube channel. And if you want any of this information, we send out emails every week. There was actually an email that went out today at 10 a.m. So make sure you check your email for all of this information. In that email, you'll have our CCAS_careers email where you can email us with future questions. There's the handshake link to schedule an appointment. There's information about upcoming events and workshops and even job and internship opportunities that come our way. Go in that email. So please just don't hesitate to reach out, and we're always here to help you.